Welcome to another episode of Feed the Trolls, and I have the grumpy men of Counter-Strike, as they're known on the internet, Kassad and Thorin. I'm going to completely ruin this facade for everyone, though, because I have you both here. I can actually say this. So, interestingly enough, at IEM Cologne, Kassad, my first Cologne, he took me aside and he showed me a football host called Kate Abdo, who's now become like my hero, and encouraged me to lean into my personality, told me to stop trying to be what everyone said I should be. Obviously, Duncan has been super supportive. You encouraged me to do the show. You've also told me to lean into that. You're actually both really nice guys behind the scenes.
Well,
and I don't
listen, let's not get any rumors going out there. Exactly.
Listen, don't ruin our image.
I don't
exactly.
I
need
like,
haters to feed on stuff, against us.
I always laugh. Whenever I see the hate online, I just giggle and I'm like, if only they knew. But anyway, that is besides the point. Now I do want the grumpy men of Counter-Strike to come out because we're talking about Team Falcons today. There's been so much about this team on the internet, but we're going to actually deep dive this nice and proper. But before we do that, the first question that I want to ask, just so that we can set the scene, I've seen a bit of debate about this on X. Maui has tried to define it, but let's get your definitions. What exactly is a super team, in your opinion? Let's start with Kassad.
Best players for each role makes a super team, right? Let's say take FaZe, right? Then you had FaZe that won the Grand Slam. They had, Brokey, who was one of the, top operas back at the time, right? Rob's obviously still one of the best players of the game in his role. Then you had obviously Twists back then, the guy who was extremely good. Then you have Carrigan, one of the top IGLs. It's just a team that is composed of the best player in each and every role, topped up by a great coach that can make these things happen. For me, that seems like a super team, right? Everything else is just Astralis wasn't a super team when they were the best one in 2018, 19, whatever. They won everything. They were the best team, but they were not a super team. FaZe was the super team. Liquid, in a sense, was close to a super team when they won their Grand Slam. They had Stewie back then, who was probably the best entry at the time. Naf was the best closer. They had a solid structure. They had a good coach back then. It was that was close to it, but my definition definitely, when you ask what is a super team composed for the players that are best in their roles. Take Manchester City, for example, right now. You have these people that are best in their job, right? And you have De Bruyne, Haaland, Phil Foden, on the right side Bernardo Silva, all these players right there, right there. Obviously, everybody, Duncan, you probably remember the Galacticos.
Of course,
right?
Yeah.
The Real Madrid players, that's a super team. And that applies to Counter-Strike as well. Nothing really changes. But right now, I don't think we have one. I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
Interesting. Thorin, for you, what is a super team?
Is, as ever, I think Kassad was almost too logical there. You have to realise that term is more like a colloquial term. It's just something people throw around in the community. And as someone who's followed sports for a long time, I don't think there are hard and fast rules. I actually think half the reason why this discussion even exists is people have just taken that term and they've tweaked it or slightly stretched it, and it's gone so far in one direction or the other. As you pointed out, Launders once did ask, is Astralis a super team? Which I know what Kassad means. Here's the problem. I think essentially he nailed it there with some of the sports references. The two sports references I would give would be actually old school 2000s Galacticos Real Madrid that he's talking about with because you have to realize that team's the best example probably ever, because the names on that team had and indeed could have been the best player or contender for the best player in the world on 4 different teams or something. They had the star players of a bunch of different teams all in one team at the same time. If people know American sports, I actually think that first LeBron James Miami Heat team's a great example, because again, him, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh were the star player of another team in the same conference. You just put them all in one team. So to me, I actually think the simplest definition is just you take a bunch of star players and put them onto one team. I know what Kassad means. People often also want it to be every person's really good, but the thing is, I don't think you get that many times in a team. I would say it's more of a fan thing that mainly is just used. This is the key point, I think, is it's not about if the team actually ends up being good. If it ends up being a bad team and it doesn't work, by the way, actually even that Galacticos Falcons team we referenced earlier didn't win that many titles and stuff. That doesn't make it not a star team. The premise is it's more of a framing technique for when you form the team. So I would say the simplest version is when you form a team and you put what to a bunch of fans would be like the best player or a star player on another team all in one team. That's a super team, because I think the super part's almost like the hype from all the names stacked together. Even though actually the irony of both sports and esports is the super teams very rarely ever live up to the billing. It seems like actually they usually sort of less than some of their parts, bizarrely.
Another example is that old phase team with Nico, Guardian, all of Carrigan, and who was the fifth, I can't remember, but those 4 players, like, they were everybody. When they got together, it was like, oh my god, Nico, obviously the GOAT, one of the GOAT contenders, all of won like 2 times in a row, the best player, they have Carrigan, they have Guardian, who was a superstar op, it was just that was a super team. But they didn't deliver, what they were supposed to deliver. We all know what happened after Boston and all these things. Like, so for me, that's kind of thing, because if you look at the names of that team, Olaf was a monster player back then, right? He was supposed to do everything. Nico, apparently he can also do anything. The best IGL still carrying at the time. And then who was the 4th one? Rain. Rain, yes, exactly. One of the best entries back at the time. So it was just I think it was the first iteration of a super team in CS that we ever had, right? Like, composed of all these international pieces that were like, about to just kind of go in and win everything, but obviously they didn't do it, and it fell apart.
When you say the fall apart thing, it's what Thorin said as well, because the conversation around Falcons all started with the fact that all this Saudi Arabian owned team was going to throw all this money and we were going to have a super team. And I remember saying to a couple of my friends at the time, because they're obviously fans get excited, we're going to have all these big names in one team. I said, it's never worked in football. I don't see it working here. I just feel like if you put a bunch of superstars together, they just won't figure it out. They're used to being the standalone champ, for want of a better term. But if we go back to that, it was like towards the beginning of the year, all this conversation around Team Falcons. What was this team supposed to look like, Thorin? Because if you look at all the chatter, it was a very different lineup to what we're seeing now.
That's actually, I think, half the problem and the sort of rod that Falcons indirectly made for their own back, which is because there was that insane roster mania early in CS2 where they were the number one sort of destination, because the premise was, that story is supposedly true, by the way, that what Nell reported, like Nico was going to the team. Like, it was essentially as close to as done as it can be without him literally signing the piece of paper. He just decided last minute, which is his prerogative, to not do it. And he went back to G2 and it turned out actually nothing happened with that squad. They didn't make any roster moves. But the problem is, the reason that detail is so important is because that was what not only leaked into the community and everyone heard like, oh, he's joining, but then that was seen as like the ultimate like green light, as it were, to every star player in Counter-Strike. Like, if this team comes to you, they've got loads of money, they're building a team with Nico, he's leaving bloody G2 to join them, where, by the way, if you could probably stay in that team forever if you're Nico. Like, the perception was, right, one, it's like a money grab, everyone who wants money, like, come to this team, and then two, if they're going to sign Nico, remember, this is the key detail, if you look at the way people phrase things publicly, it tells you everything. G2 didn't just come out and go, we decline these rumours about Monacy going to the team. They came out and their statement was just like, Monacy is not for sale for any amount of money, which I always said to them just means like add another zero. You know, like that even sounds like you're making it obvious everyone's trying to sign this guy, including probably the team getting Nico. So to me, like the main framing thing was, because it all started with like, it's going to be a team with loads of money and Nico. That does set the table. Like, this is why we're doing the context of this discussion of like, it should be a super team. Like, if you start with Nico, but if you get Nico, Monty and millions of dollars, you probably make one of the best teams of all time at that point. So the main issue, I actually do think this is like this is almost like the sun in this equation, where the gravity of the Nico story is going to pull every other detail about Falcons into that, like the event horizon of like the edge of the black hole or whatever. Because in this scenario, I feel like everything else we talk about with this team, it's even what people said as soon as they made the squad, is like, mate, imagine this team, but with Nico. Like that, you can't avoid that part of the story. Unfortunately, it does seem like that was the first domino that was setting up all the others, except in this scenario, at the end, that domino didn't end up getting pushed. So I kind of like, I do think, unfortunately, the part of the reason Falcons get heavily flamed is people do have the perception it's supposed to be a super team, that they have all this money and they've got some big name players. So the perception is they should be like the best. Never mind, just like okay.
They did everything wrong. Play.
It's really just starts like that. I know. All of it.
Expand. There we go. Just expand on that. Go.
Go on. Hit me with it.
They did everything wrong from start to this day, right? Like even this day, they don't have a stable lineup. They've lost more than they won in like fairly bit in terms of like the amount of matches they had outside of that playoff in Katowice, I believe, in the quarterfinals. They did absolutely nothing. They failed to qualify for the major. They failed to play any kind of decent Counter-Strike in Pro League. Now they have this couple of invites as well that's going to run out. And luckily for them, they bought the blast spot right till the end of the year, which was another fail. But whoever is like in charge of that, like they were supposed to buy Nico. So you know the story. Duncan just said it. They were supposed to buy Nico. They were close to signing him, and Nico just changed his mind basically because of one single reason, right? That's him not being able to play the tournaments in ESL and Blast, right? And then later then Falcons, they buy the blast spot, which could have said like, listen, it's not just that, we're buying, so you have half of them. So you just need to sacrifice a couple of ESL events, not even Katowice, probably not Cologne. So it's maybe a couple of IEMs like Dallas or something like that. And then you should be fine. The salary for Nico was supposed to be north of 60,000, you know? And that's crazy. Like you sacrifice a little bit of events, couple of events, which will mean nothing in the big picture. You get into the team that you were supposed to get in, and then you earn more money, way more money than you're earning right now, and you would be happier in the team right now. Because you see Nico's demeanor in the game, he doesn't seem happy, he doesn't seem like having fun or enjoying Counter-Strike that he is playing, and also with his own performance. So Falcons fucked up there by not saying him, well, listen, we'll get the blast spot, we'll pay you this what we agreed to, we're just gonna buy you in and then you're gonna play, right? You're gonna get a decent offer, which is some Sunpayus, right? But that's another subject I'm gonna go into. And it's like they fucked up pretty much, right? In a way. And then he went back to G2, they bought the blast spot, they didn't do anything again. And then he stayed in G2, and then, the money was wasted pretty much on that spot. Why do you even play it when your team is not even complete? What are you accomplishing there? So they went and overpaid. They paid $1 million at the very least. So it's a 7-figure number for Sunpayus back in, when he was in Ents. That's $1 million. His true value is maybe 200K. 250 at the most. Yes, he's a good offer, but he's not a $1 million offer. m0NESY was 600K back then, and that was a major game. That's 600K. And then they pay 1 million. Yeah, he's okay. He has normal numbers, solid numbers, but that's not superstar level. $1 million is a superstar level buyout. And they didn't do it. On top of that, God knows how much they paid for Snappi. I assume it's not like too much, but maybe 200-300K, right? Because he was supposed to leave the end, so there was like some contractual issues there.
I think they said it was near the end of his contract, so probably not that much.
Yeah, it was like not too much, right? But then they had to compensate that. That's another problem. Compensate that with the higher salaries. Now, the average salary, as far as I know, behind the scene is like around $38,000, which is absurd. It's crazy.
Of course, yeah.
Like, why would you do that in any kind of situation, right? You have no obligation to do that. Your team was like already set up with Lars and Zonic. People would be going there simply because of those two people, right?
Sure.
And now they got Snappi, who also the mistake was like they're believing that they're gonna perform the same way in CS2 like they did in CSGO, which is not the case. Snappi is not the same IGL, doesn't have the same performance in Magisk as well. He was one of the best in his role, like this anchor role, like the secondary caller, very smart player, versatile player that can lock sides down alone, all these things, right? But he's not that player anymore. At least it's questionable. Now the question of Lars and Zonic, obviously, supposedly he is, based on his titles and, everything, he's supposed to be the GOAT coach, right? Now, even though he has all those titles, people started to question that. People started to question is Snappi is a good IGL as he was in CSGO. And there's also these doubts, and they're paying all these players 35, 40, 50, God knows how many thousands of dollars a month. Plus, on top of the fact that there is some contractual issues that I cannot share here, but contractual stuff that are absolutely ridiculous, that there is no business being in a Counter-Strike contract. Like, it's crazy. And, all these things, and on top of that, they inflated and destabilized the market completely, which triggered a lot of problems in CS ecosystem. Like, Sunpayus got sold for 1 million. Then you have Stavn and Yabi, right? Being sold for 2 million. Like, they completely destabilize everything with these salaries. And then the other players and the other agents are coming and it's like, oh, I want 25K for my player that is worth 7K. And then the deals are not being made, teams are being ruined, people are getting fired, results are not being done, and the money is being wasted. So overall, they fucked up everything. That's what that's.
I like the way in the end he's related the entire ills of the whole CS scene, just Falcons and the first domino.
They were the first domino that like they went in. The thing is, like, I understand them, right? From the business side, look at it. They have unlimited money, right? Unlimited.
Sure.
When I say unlimited, that's what I mean exactly to the literal meaning of that word. So it's like, look at the water. Like, if you have, like, we have drinking water like at home, right? Unlimited. That's the sense of it, right? So we waste it on everything. Like, you water your plants, you wash your hands, you like throw it away, you go, just whatever, right? Basically waste it. Why? Because you have unlimited amount, right?
Kassad's over here like a fucking Fremen from Dune or something. Gotta keep all the moisture. Get everything.
No,
off.
But the thing is, like, you're just and they don't think about the consequences,
no, of course
right?
Not.
Like 95% of the organizations that don't have that money in general, they cannot follow that trend.
Sure.
So that's a complete fuck up right there. So I don't know. The thing is, like, for them, and now 5 months later, 6 months later, they don't have a stable lineup. They got Dupree because he was, I guess, available and free. And in the literal statement they made was like, yeah, well, we'll sign him, but we'll see, But if he does well, good. If he doesn't, then, basically, we're going to find a better solution. And he was like, okay with that. It's just a strange announcement, right?
Here's the thing. Let's get to that in a minute. Because the thing is, I want to just go back to that first thing. Because the reason why I actually do think the whole super team framing is quite interesting. And for Falcons, I can see why people hate on them. Is basically, I'll resolve the issue. I actually think if I had to explain in the most cynical way why people hate Falcons, it's nothing to do with any political thing with Saudi Arabia. Spoiler, they don't hate ESL and all the other companies that are involved with those people. The real reason I think is this. It's that they thought they were promised a super team. So at a minimum, what you get from a super team is the drama and the novelty, don't you? Like, imagine if actually m0NESY and Nico did play with, insert anyone. It could have been like Snappi, Cadian, pick anyone you want, pick any massive name. Imagine if you had that team. Well, the minimum you'd get from that team is it'd be really exciting to follow, wouldn't it? And you hope that, they'd be really good at the game. Maybe like Nico and m0NESY would be the best players in the world. And then you could even have an angle of, like, even if you claim you don't like the Saudis, it's like, oh, there's too much money in the game, like football. You're like, oh, they're bloody buying all the championship. That'd at least be like cool, be drama, right? I actually think what people hate the most about Falcons is because they made, this is the coolest part, the rest of the team looks like they tried to make a super team. Like, if you want to use that definition, like Snappi was one of the best in-game leaders in the world. Sunpayus one of the better AWPers. Maden was a pretty good sort of like entry supportive player. Magisk, as he said, was considered the best anchor, like the sleeper, the OP player that was better than his rating. Zonic's the great core. That should be a super team on paper, but here's the problem. Because you never, at the beginning of this convo, got Domino 1, which was Nico, you don't have a super team in the real sense. You have in the sense, like I said, like if you want to put the names down, it should be a super team. But the reason why it's not going to be what people hope, which is a team that's going to win the major, is this is like having a football team with no striker. It's like, look, everyone else could be the best. They're not, but everyone could be the best at their role. So you've got to score goals in football. And in this analogy, to tag on to what Kassad said, I actually think the other mistake they made is they act as though they did get an Nico because they got Sunpayus. It's like, he wasn't quite on that level. Like if we're doing tiers of superstars, the difference with an Nico is they're in like that ultra S plus tier where there's like 3 to 5 people at any one point in time. And they are, like Kassad said, they're worth the millions. If you can get them for the millions, you basically have to do it. It's like signing the best player in football. You just do it, right? At that point in time, you just figure you'll win so much it doesn't matter. The problem they have is they essentially got Sunpayus. And as he says, it wasn't cheap because Rourke was trying to buy him too. And when they got Sunpayus, they paid like they'd got a m0NESY, but he isn't quite on the m0NESY level. So the problem is he can't just one man carry the team. He's not old school simplest, but again, he's not on that tier, unfortunately. So the issue is, I think that you've got all this hype where everyone thinks like the vibe is, I'm supposed to believe this is a Galacticos insane super team, but it's not only not delivering, but quite frankly, I think everyone gets now because they don't have the Nico. there isn't really ever any hype that it turns around. I even think it's why one thing that ended up backfiring on them in a really crazy way is I thought it was genius when they signed Simple for that showdown because of the fact it was just a stupid online showdown. Who cares? Like, it's just an online match. You might qualify, you might not. I thought the fact he hadn't played me, people wouldn't put too much pressure. I actually think it backfired, Sam. I think what happened was people just saw like, holy shit, they've got Simple. And even though in our brains we knew he hasn't even played CS2, in your brain you still thought, like, but Simple though, dude. And you thought like he might just walk out there and just drop 50 kills or something. So I actually think the whole thing, it all does come back to the super team thing, in my opinion. I think that is why people, that's why if you notice, it's not that people really hate on them. They just sort of enjoy seeing them fail. It's like Schadenfreude. So I think the perception is you have all these millions. You tried to, be the big boss and get all the big name players, and then you failed. So I think people are just laughing at the fact that they think like you're incompetent, basically.
The thing is, so they weren't necessarily a super team. We've agreed on that, and there is I think a disappointment. But this team on paper originally, it wasn't a shit team. Like the score was reasonably strong. They had good players, and yet, I mean, they have one of the goated coaches, and yet from day one, this team has done nothing. It's like they can't even get into first gear. Why is that the case? I mean, I think Boris was a nice scapegoat, but even now with Dupree, they can't seem to drive out the parking lot.
I mean, one thing I would ask you is this, Kassad, is wouldn't you say also another area where they got super unlucky, to be fair, is like we've all sort of been learning, it's taken us all a lot of months, like that CS2 isn't CSGO. Like the game is different and like the qualities you need are different, the strengths. Like, I think people have to shoot way harder in this game, mate. Like I don't know what you think as someone who's putting together teams. So I also think another flaw is when we all think of this team, aren't we sort of thinking of Ents from CSGO and Zonic's Vitality from CS? We're all thinking of stuff from CSGO. We're thinking of Magisk and Vitality in CSGO. Like the problem I have as well is like they clearly aren't all the same players in CS2, right? Like it's even if you had the same exact roster from CSGO, I don't feel like it can play like it can in CSGO, right?
Absolutely. The game is more dynamic. It's a different game. Even though it looks the same, it's a different game. You see there's people like Norbert, for example. It's a different player, like just in a positive way, right? You have many players that are like going down in a negative way. One of them being maybe Magisk, right? Maybe he doesn't feel the game the same. I know when I spoke to Nico, like we had a lunch a few months back, and I asked him like, hey, straight up, like, hey, what's going on? Like, why are you playing the way you're playing? Like, why are you not the old guy, right? He said like, yeah, I'm having a problem, like, because the game is so dynamic, I'm having a problem reading the game properly right now, so I don't know how to react. Everything is happening a little bit different, so I can't really settle down, and that's the biggest problem I have. So, maybe that's one of the reasons why players are performing worse than they did. But then you have a Leash, for example, who massively kind of glow up, right?
Sure.
And he was like he plays like he's one of the top players right now, whether you like him or not. He is there, right up there. So for me, like for Falcons, they should be. I think they rushed into. I spoke about this before, and I told this to my organizations, that you don't rush into these things, like especially when the game is in transition, the market is inflated because like Ents was a team that was on the rise, that was playing good, they had these players. Heroic was like the same way. It's just like you don't rush into buying players like this. You're just gonna end up wasting money. You're gonna ruin the hype that you made, and then people are going to think that you're incompetent. The same thing happened with Cloud9 and HenryG and the Colossus thing. Like, they went in too hard with the similar way that, like, Falcons did. 40K salaries, crazy contracts, crazy buyouts, signing bonuses, like all these hype, and ended up being fucking nothing.
By the way, you notice the irony there, Kassad. If people don't remember as well, obviously Kassad was the coach of that team. Yeah. The irony of that example, Kassad, is they fucked up in exactly the same way. Because as you say, one, they overpaid people who weren't that good. And then two, they didn't themselves get the Nico because they tried to get people like Nico. They didn't get him. And then they got Woxic, who again was like more like a Sunpayus figure, right? It's actually the same fuck up even. Yeah.
Exactly. They paid like 40K salary to Attack, who played 30 maps for Astralis Online. He won the Pro League, played 30 maps. And Jack woke up one day and said, like, listen, I'm going to pay $500,000 for this guy to Astralis. And Astralis was like, oh, let's go. And then they probably, Attack should have like a golden statue of his agent who got him a 40K there. Like, close to 40 at least. Alex, the IGL, got the same thing. Like, why? How? Alex, who was benched, who was like not playing, and then you end up with the offer 40K, you destabilize the market, you put additional pressure on everyone, and then on top of that, they had their egos being like inflated because, I have 40K now, I must be the shit. I must be that guy, Neo. I must be fucking, the chosen one. And then end up being fucking nothing. Like, they just disbanded 6 months later, and Cloud9 sold the team the same way they're doing it right now. But the thing is, like, it's just the wrong timing and incompetent people making the calls because they have unlimited money, right? It's like, oh, we have millions, let's just offer millions. But let's offer them to, like, people who deserve millions.
Sure.
And tens of thousands of them, not people who are, just played well in the last 6-7 months.
By the way, the reason I said earlier, like, let's put a pin in that Dupree thing, is because, mate, I agree with you. The way it was announced that he joined the team again was so
weird.
Sus. Because here's the thing, right? There's two ways you could do it. You either introduce him in a way that doesn't, like, overhype it. Like, you say something like, hey, we realized in our team we needed more, veteran smarts, or, we needed someone to, like, help stabilize. And what you do there is you don't put any pressure that he's going to be a star player or whatever, right? But the way they announced it, Kassad, for real, this is what I'm just going to straight up call him out. I won't call him out on any other topic to do with this, because I actually think Zonic's done the best he can. I think he's just in a tough situation. He didn't get some of the players he wanted. But the one area I will call him out on is the Dupree signing, because that signing to me looks like this, Kassad. It looks like, sorry, I had to fire you from Vitality, mate, but you actually weren't good enough at the time. And even though we just won together, I wanted to win more. So I had to fire you. But you know what? This Falcons thing's going to shit anyway at the moment. And at the moment, we're not like we're going to win anyway. So you know what? Fuck it. To make it up for you, do you want to play in this team? That's what it sounds like. That's like the vibe I get, because, like, I don't get, because here's the problem. If in this analogy I just gave, the problem you had is actually the problem Boros had, is he had to be a Nico, otherwise they weren't going to be good enough. The problem is Dupree isn't Nico either. Like, we haven't got a time machine. I can't go back in time 10. If we go back in time like 8 to 10 years, I can give you the player right now who'd tear the world up with a rifle. Like, that's not who he is right now. So even that part, actually, I actually think what's sad is, this is one of the things I find fascinating about Falcons. You know what's Dupree's another massively popular player that everyone likes. Everyone likes Magisk, everyone likes Zonic, everyone likes Snappi. In fact, there's barely any players on this team people don't actually like personality-wise. But this whole, like, Falcons, like, ambience of, like, fuck this team somehow even applies to all these guys we love. Like, everyone loves Dupree. But I have to say, when you look at this squad, I think that also adds to people. Where even though he's been all right in terms of fragging, he hasn't been bad. He's not an equal level player. He's not some superstar. So I do think people look at the team and they still just laugh and just go like, haha, look this shit, aren't they? Look, they even signed him and this shit. So, like I say, to me, the take I get is that people really are, like, one, I agree with Kassad. That seemed so cynical the way they added him. Like, it's almost like they were telling him, like, you just have the next 2 months, but then we're replacing you. And then also, like, I do think that even fans don't believe this is like a real move that's going to take you to the top. So I notice people almost treat them like, if you want the sports analogy, people, if you win like Man City, people don't even care, mate, if you potentially cheated. They'll just be like, well, you did win. If you're, like, all right, like, people might make fun every now and then, Kassad, of, like, Chelsea or Man United or something who spent a lot of money, but they're still good teams. The team that Falcons is like is fucking Everton, mate, where you spent loads of money, you tried to be the big boss, and then you completely failed. Well, I'll tell you what, everyone goes in on teams like that, mate. Like, all they do is joke about squads like that. No one gives a fuck about a team like that. Somehow you don't get props if you're bad and you spend money, even though you want everyone to spend cash, so everyone can try to be good, right?
The thing is, like, with this, like, Falcons thing, like, look at the results. When they reached the playoffs of the Katowice, everybody's like, okay, this is all right. Like, considering the circumstances,
sure.
like, they were, like, kind of on their side, right?
Yeah.
Thinking, like, maybe they got the players they wanted. There was problems with Boros, whatever, whatever. But they still managed to play good, like, event. And then after that, it was nothing, literally nothing. And people kind of turn on you when they see that you are paying your players. Those players are not supposed to be immune to criticism. Like, if you are an athlete, esport athlete that makes $40,000 a month, you should not be immune to criticism. You should be ready to be criticized by everyone, right? It's not like he has like a 1K salary and he's like struggling, grinding, and it's like, this is millions invested in your team, right? Just do the math. 40K times 12 months, times 5 players, times the buyout, times all these things. We end up in $2, $3, $4 million a year. And then nothing. No major, no playoffs, no any kind of performance. They're not really a marketable team. They don't have really, like, your devices and simples and Zivus that can, like, drive the prices and drive the sales of the merchandise or anything. Who's going to buy, Maden's jersey if they're not the best team in the world, right? No one.
Probably just two people in Montenegro, I guess, but shout out, Mom and Dad.
That's what I'm saying. The same goes for every other player. The same goes for Sunpayus. Yeah, you got paid $1 million. Yeah, your salary is great, but Like, what are you selling to me? Like, if you don't do anything to like kind of get the market, excited about you and, get some sponsors of you or something, and you're not playing well, why the fuck am I paying you $50,000 a month?
Do you think this would have? Do you think this would have been different though? Because for me, the Falcons super team idea, there was so much talk about it, but the problem was it wasn't just like rumors and things like that. There was talk from the coach himself was standing up, being like, "I'm going to build this team, and everyone's going to fly business class everywhere, and everyone's going to have their own hotels, and it's going to be great." There was an article on HLTV about this, and at the time, I still thought, don't put that out there, because the moment you've given everyone the bullet, that you've put the bullet in the gun now, so they're going to shoot, because this team possibly has got more expectations on it, because we know that they're getting to fly business class and they're getting all this extra stuff. So now there is an expectation that you need to perform. Would it have been a very different approach if maybe they'd been a little bit quiet in coming into the scene, if the team had just quietly been built and presented to everyone? Do you think that would have changed people's perceptions, or do you think people would have been more forgiving, Kassad?
100%. It's more about finesse. And you finesse it a little bit better. You don't go out and say, Larissa, we're going to have business class and we're going to have butlers and whatever the hell, right? You just say listen, we're going to build the best environment, for the teams that have the best conditions the team can ever be, to be in a position to kind of, perform in the best way as a tier 1 team and be in a championship. Championship mentality is something that you need to build, right? You cannot just put 5 players and just they're going to win everything. No, it doesn't happen. Never happened. So the thing is the finessing it a little bit more and just presenting it the other way, but saying basically the same thing just in another way would maybe take the load of the pressure. But everybody knew that the buyout for Sunpayus was 7 figures. Everybody knew that instantly is like a nuke dropped. Right, and there is a pressure all over the place, right? And then obviously Nico, they know that he wasn't supposed to be cheap, and then you have Zonic who left, and Magisk who probably has a 6 salary, right? Zonic as well, because we know that he left Vitality because they had to cut his salary by a lot, and he wasn't really happy with it, so he left for another project to build something different, right? So the way you presented that needs to be a little bit better. We all remember that HLTV confirmed episode where it was basically what the hell, it was such a one of the strangest podcasts I've seen, and some of the answers was completely nonsense in my book, right? So the way they presented itself, it lifted the pressure that was already there. So I think you're right. If they did it a little bit different, maybe it was going to be a little bit more, and this simple move was unnecessary. So the way I see it, they probably paid Navi for his salary for that month, which is not fucking cheap. And he played one game, and then he left. And they paid all this money for that. The publicity stunt, whatever, they got some hype, and that's all they got for their money. That for me is a offense that the person decided that needs to be fired, or
Fired.
Got another position in the organization, but a janitor or something. But
if you do another ESL event, they have to make a skit where it's like a Donald Trump apprentice style show with Kassad just firing everyone, because that's his answer to everyone. It's fire this person. You thought you'd done something big.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, it's business. It's nothing personal towards the guy. It's business. If I'm putting hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars into your expertise, and your expertise gets me to nowhere after 6 months, what do I do with you? I tap you on the back and say, good luck, try again tomorrow with the same amount of my money? Or do I just say, listen, maybe you're not the right guy for the job, I'm going to go a different direction? That's how it is. It's how it should be in any business. I'm not
Problem is, though, Kassad, I'm pretty sure you get this as well. The simple one is the giveaway. That's the canary in the coal mine that tells you what this org's about. Because the simple one, we're saying, look, I joked that that could go awesome, but that's when you're thinking in your dream superhero, oh my god, Simple's coming back. If he's never played an official game, he probably shouldn't be good. He probably wasn't going to even if they won that game against Metasport guys, they probably weren't going to win the Blast Showdown. They weren't actually that good a team. So to me, the reason that's the giveaway though, and I do agree that almost does justify some of the hate on Falcons, is because that looks like such a cynical move. Essentially that's on paper the biggest bang you can get for your buck, but in the server it's not going to be. he? So, like, that's almost like you only did it for the PR. Like, that actually implies, Kassad. Like, this is the problem I also think this org has. I do think people like Zonic, if you ever look at how he talks in interviews, he's never said any of this stuff, guys. He's never said, like, I'm making a super team and we're going to be the best. Look, he did make that comment where he said, like, I'm the bag or whatever. Like, he had that one moment we had the little ego boost. But aside from that, he's tried, actually, even though this has come back to bite him too, he's tried to message what you're talking about, Sam. Like, the idea, even when they couldn't get Nico, for example, he was heavily messaging the idea, like, hey, maybe the players that were in the last lineup before I came in, the French, like, maybe they can stay and they can try out. And people like that Laux guy that fucking Kassad had later, like, maybe he could try for a spot. And so the implication he was trying to make was like, you know, like, temper expectations. I'm going to build up this thing. I think he even stressed very heavily when he signed initially. It's a long-term project, you know, it's not just something for like now, I'm going to build up this whole thing. That's great. I think that approach would have been way better. If people's perception was, well, remember that like useless French lad there that was just okay. We're going from that and then one day give, because like in this analogy, give Zonic 2 years or 1 year or something. In a year from now, maybe he'll have a team like a Vitality level that can compete again. Instead, the problem is, I agree, if you look at like a mixture of the Nico stuff, the worst thing they ever did was have that fucking owner guy go on HLT confirmed. I think that guy thought he was so smart, like, and he was just fucking up his press statements all over the place. If you're a journalist, you can even see through, like for example, it's basically implied that he even fucking scored an own goal and inadvertently sort of admitted they're probably fucking funded by the PIF thing in Saudi, etc. But he tried to be slick and get around it by, and what he didn't realize was the difference between, like, in a court of law, yeah, you wouldn't have caught you on that, but everyone knew what you meant by it, you idiots. So it's like, it's the court of public opinion now. So I will say that I do think in the court of public opinion, they have absolutely fucked up everything with their marketing. Because, like I say, it's like they've given a fan the perception this should be like a super team that we're paying too much for. But then the joke is we haven't got any results. Like, no one can accept that. Like I say, you can be the Man City or the Real Madrid. If you can spend bazillions, as long as you're also really good, people will accept that. The one thing they'll never expect is the idea that you're like, because here's what I think people also take. When that guy came on that show and they heard all this big talk about, oh, we're going to change the game and we're going to get a business guy. What you're doing there is saying to everyone else in esports, you don't know what you're doing. You're all shit. And now that I've got a giant bag of money, I'm smarter than all of you. Well, guess what? People love seeing people like that fail. People want someone like that to be taken down a peg or two, right? We all sort of do. I get that. I get the vibe.
The thing is, what pissed me off the most a little bit.
Come on. What grinds your gears, Kassad? Come on, hit me with
is
it.
the fact that like nobody is like using their brain cells in a proper way. Maybe they're clouded with all these dollars and everything, right? But the thing is, like, you have unlimited money, so that's out of the way, right? So I don't have to worry about money or whatever. Like, I don't have to calculate the buyouts. I don't have to calculate. Why don't look at the recipe? What works in the past? What did make teams better in a what makes teams go to different levels, like up, you know? Take a let's say the past teams, Ants, right? Spinks was the one that made it all different for Ants, right? And they lost him. And they made another move, Nerds. You know, made the team whole lot of better. Now he's playing sick, right? He's in heroic. He joined his life right now. You know, still has the coach that he had. Everything is like, but he's playing well. Like all this, like what is the roster? What type of roster move is gonna make my team better? Now that I don't have to worry about money, right? And they come up with Simple, and they come up with Dupree. Like this is what beyond me. Like you don't have to worry about money or salaries or anything. You just sit down and scout. See who is the next good guy, who is gonna be who is the best in the supportive role, the sacrificing role, right? Look at Gamer Legion and that Isak kid. Like, for example, that would be a good pickup for that kind of supportive role. Like, you look at Nerds, you look at, can I buy Nerds as well, right? Because I have this money. Sure. Can he be the one that is change my game to the next level, right? Somebody else, like all these like talents that are coming up, he doesn't have to be, you know, 5 types of personalities and players like Sunpayus or Magisk is. You bring somebody that's here, that's up and coming. The Heavy God, for example, is another option from OG. He was in Endpoint and he went to OG. Now his price is rocketed up because he's a good player. Like, maybe that player can work there, right? Somebody like, even like, you know, somebody from G2, right? And if you all want to spend like all this money, then spend 3-4 million and buy Nico and Monesi. And that's all. It's fine, right?
Hear me out though, Kassad, because there's a couple of things. So the first is just to jump off the back of Thorin's point earlier with Zonic, and just to give a bit of context. So that the guy we're talking about on HLTV was MS Desari. He's one of the owners of Team Falcons. very well-known FIFA player, and ended up setting up this team, jumped on HLTV podcast and spoke a lot of shit. It felt like a PR gone wrong. I don't think he was expecting some of the questions. On the other side, you had Zonic, and Zonic has done interviews and he's mentioned things like the business class flights, but never in a bragging way. Zonic's actually done it in a, I want to take care of these players. This is what I'm thinking as a coach. We're going to use these resources to make them better. And he has, exactly like you said, played it down. So I wonder if it's not a case of, and again, I'm jumping into people's heads. I don't actually know what's happened, but Zonic's sitting there as a coach, and I think that I do think that he's a level-headed man, and he's going, okay, we need this up-and-coming talent, but you're going to the agents of the up-and-coming talents who goes, oh, Falcons, and just sees dollar signs everywhere, completely just makes it way too much money. And I would argue that maybe Zonic's going, hold on, I don't actually want my bosses to be taken for a ride. He's not worth that. We're not going to pay it. And they've now found themselves in this situation where they don't really have anyone to fill those spots. But maybe it's because every single person they're approaching is just pricing themselves completely out of the market. Could that be happening?
And they agreed to this all these numbers, right? They didn't fight it seems. Like Ant said 1 million, all right, pay it. You're probably the agent of Magisk or agent of Zonic or whoever, agent of Maden, we want 35 to 40, yeah, fine, got it. Like, they're not thinking about the market or how is it going to impact the players or the whole vibe around the team. Like, the money is going to be there. You're going to make money if you're good, right? No matter what. So, and these players are not like, Cristiano Ronaldo and Neymar that goes to Saudi Arabia League and get like multiple millions to lift the Saudi Arabian League and the marketing around it. They're just going to be playing still with the big dogs, with the best players on the best events. Like, do you need to be thinking about these things? And I don't think they did at all. They just agreed to everything because they can. And you cannot really blame them because it's allowed in esports. So you have no cap when it comes to salaries, like they have in NBA, for example. Like, you can just pay whatever you want. You can just buy whoever you want because simply if you have money, you can do it. And nobody is regulating that, so we end up in this position. It fucks up the teams like around them, right? Those 5-6 players, that team, they will make their money. Somebody will be cut, somebody won't. They'll still have their big salaries, but it fucks up the market in a way that other people cannot make their deals because agents are like, oh, I want 20K for this guy, which is worth like 5K. Like, how do you battle that? You just say no, and then because he thinks he is the shit, the agent, he says like, okay, I'm just going to go to another team. And he ruins the deal for his player. And then his player ends up being in a shittier team instead of in a more successful team because he got like 1-2K more at the end of the deal. Instead of 20, he got 7. And he could have 5 in the other team. That would be perfect for his player to develop, to grow. And in 2 years, when he signs a new contract, it will be worth 15,000-20,000. But he wanted more now. And he wanted more now because Falcons and Astralis and Ences and HenryG, all these people are paying this much money to the people who are not supposed to be paying this much money and destabilize the market completely.
By the way,
in a fucked up spot.
I even think it shows a misunderstanding of what it currently works in esports to succeed. Like right now, if people don't know, the successful orgs aren't the ones who spend all the money. Like you have the odd ones, like the Astralises and the Navis. Sometimes when it's their big player, like a Device or a Simple, yeah, they'll sign like the biggest salary in the world if you want. But the difference is, notice even those teams, if they don't think the lineup can win the major, they'll just put an academy player in and just save cash on that salary spot. So the part I think people have missed is this. The other area Falcons have completely wasted all the goodwill of their team is people don't go to just join a team to play with Snappi or under Zonic. I know people, we want to believe they do because like they're some of the best at their role. Here's the difference. Pro players will go and play with Nico Monacy. Like what a pro player thinks is this. I can't know anything about how this team will work out, but if I have like Nico Monacy, they're pretty much guaranteed to be really good and frag out, right? So I know I'm at least going to be in a good team. If you join a team with Snappi, hey, he's a good IGL, but I don't know how it's going to work with these players. If you join a team with Zonic, he's just a coach that you can only talk 2 times a half or whatever. Like it's not like he can have insane impact. So the mistake I think they made is why I brought up the org angle is that's not even how the best orgs succeed now. Like if people don't know, like we just referenced about Zonic, teams like G2 and Vitality, if you're the biggest name like Zewu or not, like Monacy, yeah, you'll get a big contract. But actually there's some people on like a medium-sized contract in those teams. In fact, sometimes they even make signings, sometimes I think to save money, like Flames. I think they did that because there was no buyout. I don't think they did it because they thought he was the best player in the world and he was on the top of their shortlist. So I actually think people people miss that, like, the two main reasons to join teams right now is, one, you already have the proven superstar like the Ziwu. That's why everyone will join Vitality. They don't pay close to the most guys. They've never been the number one paying people as far as I know. Or the other reason you join is it's already a top team that wins. Falcon has none of that. You don't have the Nico type player. Again, you're gambling if you join, if you're anyone. The joke is, if you join now, you're supposed to be Nico. So already that's a lot of players don't want that mantle. And then secondly, I actually think, unfortunately, people don't look at this team and say, hey, you've got like Snappi and Zonic. Like, they think of Zonic and Vitality and Astralis. They think of Snappi with Ents. No one looks at this and sees it as like a team with history or culture or anything. It's actually, I would say, here's the biggest problem to summarize. I think right now, because you've sort of wasted all this initial goodwill of we're making a big team and a super team, I think the only reason someone joins now is money. And that's probably the worst reason to get someone to join your team, because at the top level we're talking about, like he says, this isn't like Ronaldo just takes like the biggest contract possible to go play in Saudi Arabia, but who cares? Won't affect his legacy. He's not playing in the Champions League. No. This is like you're getting paid, loads of money, but you're going to have the most possible pressure. Right now, we have no guarantee you'll even succeed. And at the end of it all you'll have got is the money. Like, I think that's actually, unfortunately, as bizarre as it sounds, people trying to flex that, like, money's everything. That's a terrible deal. That's not a great deal for anyone.
Yeah, and also like Cristiano Ronaldo, Neymar, they go to the Saudi Arabian league, they scored 40 goals. Like, true, yeah. Because they're playing as tier 4 players. Like these people who took the money and then still want to compete, like they have to beat like all these tier 1 players.
Yes.
And also I'll give you the 2 examples. For example, we talked about Galacticos in Real Madrid. Like all these people, superstars, super team, they came into an organization that's Real Madrid Football Club with pedigree, with winning culture, with all the facilities, infrastructure, all the people, supportive staff, everything was ready. Falcons, they don't have that. Most of the organization, they don't have that. That's yet to be built. But for Galacticos, it was there. Now look at that. Let's say the Sunpayus angle, right? $1 million at the very least, 7 figures. And I'll take the other example.
I love the way he knows all the exact figures as well.
He knows all of it.
I know, in the middle of the night, he just wakes up, 700k for some pious. That's Monacy money. It's Monacy money. It's not Monacy. It's like, go on, keep going.
So the thing is, like, take Wonderful. Navi Zop, Wonderful. He was in Spirit.
Yep.
He got released. He went to Sprout.
Yep.
He got released. He goes to Sprout. He plays there. He farms there. Navi goes, pays like 40k. 40k. Gives him a salary of 10, 15, whatever now it is. I don't care. And then he's playing 2 times better than Sunpayus.
Sure.
Like, it's about planning, it's about scouting, it's about the organization, it's about like people behind the scenes and like doing these things and preparing your team to do the best. Then you pay $1 million for Sunpayus. These guys paid $40,000 for Wonderful. Wonderful 3 times outperformed Sunpayus. He won the fucking major with the new lineup, with the whole turbulence. And then we have Falcons and Sunpayus as well, not doing anything for the whole season.
By the way, one of the reasons, Kassad, I actually wanted you to be the guest for this specific topic is because if people don't know, Kassad is actually literally putting skin in the game and putting his money where his mouth is. If people don't know, in his org, Bleed, they actually have loads of money too, if people don't know. Like, if you don't know some of the signs they made it like Valorant, they have lots of money. If they wanted, when he came to this team, it could have been another Cloud9 scenario. He could have gone like Falcons and tried to sign all these big names. He's actually done the opposite. If people don't know, the irony is people hate on Kassad because of the Huxley angle. But he actually, in his team, the reason it's a pretty good team now is because he actually started with cheap players and players that he gambled on, but for little money, and he's gradually GM'd them up. So you're doing essentially, to you, you're doing the opposite approach to Falcons, right?
I'll give you like some numbers from our team right now, and I'll tell you how it worked in my head. In December, when we were supposed to like get players, and like I told the organization, we won't spend. I don't want to spend. I don't want to go into this multi-million like 25k, 30k salaries. I don't want it. I just don't want to do that way. It's fine if you want to do it, but I'm not, because the market is inflated. It's in the wrong place. For example, I asked in January, I think it was January, where I messaged Apex for Jacob, and they straight up replied to me with a request for 1.2 million.
Oh, okay.
1.2 million. You know how much I paid for him?
Free, I'm gonna guess.
Last week,
100k or something, 50k.
65,000.
There you go.
$65,000.
Okay.
I paid for him. And you know how much was Nock, who is, by the way, tier 1 offer.
Sure.
Like, the guy's lightning quick.
I'm going to get same thing, 50k or something. Come on.
His buyout was $450,000 when I asked for him. You know how much I got him for? $65,000.
Okay.
right now, after the major, like after everything, after the market deflated a little bit and stabilized a little bit, the prices went down. I knew that in December. And that's what I told the organization. Once like something happens and the opportunity comes, I'm just going to jump on it and see if it's going to work, right? And they were like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. So I went to the organization and said, like, listen, this is what we pay. This is going to be the deal. This is going to be their salary, whatever. 65,000 for each player from the organization. Done. Deal is done instantly, right? We had like maybe 2 days back and forth, but that was the deal, right? And instead of paying what 1.6 million, I paid 130,000. Simply because you have to understand the fucking market and how it works and how Falcons fucked it together with some other teams, right? So there's going to be tournaments. There's going to be CS for the next 10 years. You don't have to rush in right now and spend $10 million. For them, I guess they don't care because they have like money on the tap, right? They just unscrew the thing and then just money falls down. But it still needs to be done the right way, because how much time will this people, players, coaching staff, whatever, get before somebody up there says like, hey, where is the results? Like, why are we not playing the whatever, like, you know, this event or this event, where are the trophies? Like, somebody wants it. Like, there's going to be somebody that asks the question. Those people, maybe they have unlimited money, but they're stupid.
I was about to say, Kassad, like, in my experience, if you have unlimited money, it's usually because you understand the value of money and you're well aware what it can get you, which means at some point you start going, hey, like, you're not dumb. You're not just, you might be throwing money now, but it's because you expect a return. And if that return doesn't come, you will cut those funds very fast. And I do think that that's going to end up being the case of someone at the top of Falcons is going to go, hold on, where the hell are my results? I wanted to be the team that everyone was talking about in a positive light. I want trophies being lifted. I paid all this money. Where are my trophies? And players as well, like Thorin mentioned it there, professional players want to win. So how long before some of these players go, hold on, I don't want to waste my career here. Like, I want to start winning. But if we get back to the Counter-Strike specifically, if you were to go back and forget about the money and all of that, but if you're just looking at the team as what it is now, Boros is removed. Who do you put in that place? If it's not Nico, how could this have maybe been a redemption arc for Falcons? What player could they have put in place of Boros to try and get the results?
Why not, like, if they're willing to spend 1 million again for Sunpayus, why not 1 million for Frozen? You know, why not like 600k for Nerds? His buyout was 500,000 flat. You know, that was his buyout.
That's insane, bang for buck, yeah.
Getting that player, why not? You know, it's just I don't know. The thing is, like, right now they have to look at in that direction. Who is, like, look at the past results and then look at the past recipes and everything, and then see who is going to be that next Nerds, who is going to be that next Pinks, whatever the role. I'm just laying different roles, but who is going to be that next guy? Pay 200-300k for him. That's fine. But he's going to get your team. He's going to be a new fresh blood. He's going to get you the numbers. You can, you know, do something with it, because Snappi did something with exactly those players, Nerds and Sunpayus and, you know, Spinks and all these things, right? Even with Maden as well. He came in from that FPX or whatever that team was, right? So doing something like that might be the right move for them. But they can still chase down Nico, you know? And
do you think he would go to Falcons? I mean, we're coming up to the player break. Things could change.
Maybe not in this player break, but in the next one. Like, because, like, it depends. Like, I don't know what's happening. Like, the Hooks is not playing Dallas now. It's a bit vague information, so I have no idea what's going on. But the thing is, like, you can see that team is, like, slowly fading away. Like, even in our show that we had to do, Duncan, one of the takes that I was going to make is that, like, without Monacy, G2 is not even a tier 1 team. Like, they're not. Like, that team is fading away in different ways. Like, and unless you do something radical soon, you're gonna be, like, done pretty much. Now, Monacy to Cloud9 was like an interesting thing, but now Cloud9 is in shambles. So I don't know what's gonna happen there. But, like, you know, and on the other side, instead of using this opportunity right now to re-sign Monacy for another 2-3 year deal, because Cloud9 is doing whatever, they are not. Like, that's again a move that I would make in this scenario for them. But, like, I don't know. I'm still thinking about this money, and I want people to understand that I was on the bad side of it too with a lineup called Extreme. I'm gonna give you some numbers there. Like, players there had like 25k salary. We all got signing bonuses. They all got 25k salary. They bought Jacob for 400k. They bought the ex 100 Thieves core, Leah's Gratisfaction and Ezra for 150,000. Like that was a lot of money spent. And it happened the same way it happened into Cloud9. Like after 8-9 months, we couldn't get the results going because we didn't have the proper lineup. We didn't change the players because of the RMRs, and they were like the guy on the top. I personally, like when we got into this lineup, I was shown the bank statement. These people had money. I was shown the bank statement of $300 million on a bank account. Like I saw it with my own eyes. So I know they have money. We had the escrow kind of thing that we were supposed to have like a proof that they will pay us, severance packages in case they leave fucking CS. So they had to pay, I don't know, they had to put on a separate bank account like hundreds of thousands of dollars for that in case they pull out or something like it's gone wrong. So because we didn't trust, they have money. But these guys had money, right? And the thing is, like, after 10 months, the guy on the top was like, listen, you didn't make the major. There was no results. Like, I'm pulling the plug. I have unlimited money, but I'm pulling the plug. I don't want to like burn money. And I was like, that's fine. I'm perfectly fine with it. That's the right way to do it. I would do the same. So the thing is, like, I don't know what's going to happen with Falcons. That's a long-term project rather than this ours. But like, they have more unlimited money, I guess, than the Extremum guys. But the overall moves need to be made. I think they need to be made in the half season, like off season, whatever you want to call it. So for them, it's not looking good in the first season, but still they can make it through simply based on the fact that they can pay everything, right? They just can, which other teams cannot.
Fair point. I'm curious, if I gave you unlimited budget for both of you and I said build me a super team, what would your super team look like?
The sad thing is, I actually don't think like the core of Falcons is bad. Like the dumbest thing about this move, it's why I stress so much that I think the whole Nico thing at the beginning is somewhat like the shadow looming over it to this day, is because the most obvious person they miss is a superstar rifler like Nico. I actually think if you had that piece, all the other pieces potentially fall into place and they look way better, and suddenly we're talking about an actual project here that's going somewhere. So the silly thing is, it's not like I need to make like a team from scratch. If you really did just have this team, but then give them a really good rifler, so it doesn't have to be Nico. If it could be Nico, obviously great. It could have been an Elige or someone like that would be a banger player. I even think, by the way, some of the more questionable ones, if they're willing to gamble, people like Blame F are out there. They could have had someone like that. By the way, I'm assuming in a world where the players say yes, like Electronic, why can't he go to another team? Like, I'm pretty sure he could just shoot people in the head and speak English a little bit. Kassad apparently doesn't ever want to leave, but I think he's amazing. Imagine him in a team like this. I agree with Kassad. Think of all the players. If you notice, the saddest thing about this conversation is, if they really did have the bazillion $1 million and everyone in theory could join if they said yes, what have they done for the last 8 months then? You've just missed all these windows. Like he says, Frozen already went to fucking FaZe Clan from Mouse Sports. You already had like Kassad say no to Team Liquid. You already had Twists join Team Liquid instead of that. So the problem is, you sort of like sat there while all the players that I want on this wish list have gone. They've all gone to other teams. Even the Nerds one. Like, the problem now is this. He's right. If you'd wanted Nerds and he was willing to join, you could have had him. He was there. Instead, exactly. Now you've let him join Heroic. Now they've signed. He might not even join now, mate. Now he might be on decent money. He might be happy where he is. And like I said, the problem now is, it's not just like, well, what am I going to get at Falcons? I think now there's a negative perception of like, I don't want to be involved in that mess and get everyone hating on me and be shit and then have no spots in the league. So I think now there's actually like almost like a negative momentum around the team too. So I think it's also going to be really hard to get any of these names.
But they still have resources. They still have that Lars guy and Zonic, right? They have credibility. Yeah, they have the results. They have the experience, and they have the money most of all. So there are names. There are names out there, right, that you can get. Obviously, Nico. We're talking about Xantares, like all these people that are like right there that can be, taken. Like, also there is kid from Fnatic, that Matisse kid. Like, he's extremely talented. Heavy God, another player. Like, there are players that will make your team better, right there, and they're not $1 million.
No. By the way, I think the Xantares one's a banger. If you could actually sign that player, you'd be good almost immediately, I'm pretty sure.
Xantares, Nico, Matisse, Frozen, Heavy God, all these people would fit in good into that team. 100%. Like, you swap the roles a little bit, but they will make your team play better to the point that you will be constantly in playoffs at the very least. And after that, while you see where you're at, where the ceiling is, maybe you swap something else and then become a contender team. And then on the third step, you swap something else and then you become a championship team. By that time, the organization behind the scenes, they set up the processes, they set up the coaching staff properly, they set up the infrastructure, they organize themselves, behind the scenes to support the players with not fucking business classes, but actual help, right? And then you get a championship team in about 9 to 12 months.
The joke is, of course, that instead of business class flights, they just need business classes for their C-suite executives.
Yes.
There we go. I kind of want to take the violin out now because this is very soft and squishy. But I think that the hardest thing for me about Falcons is the fact that there isn't a single player in this team now and coaching staff who I don't actually respect and like.
Everyone loves them, right?
They're really good. They're nice people. They play really well. They're fun to engage with. There's nothing wrong on paper. So it is a little bit heartbreaking that it can't work, and they are becoming hated for what an organization has decided to do. And I can't hate on players. If you were offered huge amounts of money, you were going to take it. I would, if someone offered, why would you say no? You've got such a limited bracket to play this game, and you've got family to look after and a future to think about. So it is kind of sad that they took the nicest people, some of the nicest people in Counter-Strike, and they're turning into the villains. That is I think for me, the heartbreak around Team Falcons as a whole.
The thing is there is nothing wrong with Maden, Magisk, Sunpayus. I'm sure they saw the opportunity, they saw the project as it was presented to them, right? It was presented, we're going to have this, you're going to be paid this much, we have this, we are aiming at fucking whatever the fuck they're aiming for. And they're obviously I would take it. Anybody would. 99% of the players would, except for Nico, who didn't. But the thing is, there was Nico didn't look at the bigger picture. He was just looking at the 2024, right? Which was a mistake at the end, but he thought there were going to be better things in G2, but whatever. The thing is, everybody would take that deal. 35, 40K, good contracts, stable contracts. The money is not a problem. It won't be a problem. I'm just going to be sitting down, playing my game, do the best I can. But the other pieces that needs to make them better, no matter what you do, how good of an actor you have, right? You have an actor who is a fucking Oscar winning actor. Doesn't fucking matter if your camera doesn't fucking work. What the fuck are you recording? It doesn't work. I can act my ass out and be the fucking, Robert De Niro right here, but if the camera is not working and my fucking producing is not even turning on the camera or my mic is not working, what the fuck are people gonna see? Nothing. And that is what's happening right here.
I think that sort of sums it up. So we'd love to hear from you now. Who is your super team? How do you feel about Falcons throwing all this money around? Tell us all in the comments, and we'll see you in the next episode.